Good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you wherever you may be. My name is Wajahat Saeed Khan. I'm a journalist based in New York City, reporting on the latest from Pakistan and the rest of South Asia. The results of the recent elections leave no good options for Pakistan. That's what the Wall Street Journal is claiming, assessing the results and the aftermath of what are considered to be the most consequential as well as perhaps the most rigged polls in Pakistan's recent political history. The journal's Sadanand Dhume is skeptical about Pakistan's future government formation, the role of the military, and yes, even the advent of Imran Khan. Today, I talk to Dhume and try to understand his skepticism, but also challenge him about his take. What's his problem with Imran Khan coming on board, and why is he so skeptical about the rest of the system? I'm lucky to have him here. Sadanand, welcome back.
Great to be back, Wajahat.
All right, man. So I read your piece. It didn't go down in peace with me, but I will highlight it. Much like Shakespeare's great three-act tragedies, this one had three contentions. The top contention is no good options for Pakistan, despite of who comes to power. That's one. Two, not very excited about Imran Khan, and three, instability is on the horizon. Uh, Premised on that, let's start with the first contention. Why don't you think that the recent election results leave any good options for Pakistan?
I'll answer that, Wajahat, but I would say that the first contention of the piece really is, which is something that's probably obvious to your viewers, but is not obvious to everyone, which is that Imran Khan clearly won the elections fair and square. Right? I was watching a podcast with some, fairly well-known Pakistani academic the other day, where the person was trying to sort of talk about the 93 odd seats that the PTI won as that really being the legitimate result. In my journal column, as you know, I make it very clear that was really not the case. The dice were all loaded against Imran Khan. He still pulled off a spectacular victory. I think 93 seats is an extreme understatement. And in reality, even if after all of the pre-poll rigging, even after the sort of the playing field had been tilted against him, if they had just counted the votes, I have no doubt that he would have got many, many more seats than the 93 that he's been given. So I think that's sort of going into it. I accept and I acknowledge that the odds were completely against Imran Khan. Nonetheless, he prevailed in this election and has won a great moral victory and has burnished his image as the most popular figure in Pakistan. That's really where I start off.
Right.
Beyond that, yeah.
And by the way, I must add that this is in consistency with your take about the Khan brand and the Khan story over the few months, years that you have been reporting, you have been writing about Khan in and out of power. So this so far seems consistent that he is this larger than life figure, and he's probably one of the most exciting stories to tell about leadership in South Asia.
But in the world.
In the world.
In terms of having a narrative arc, right? I mean, you're a storyteller. In terms of, politicians need to have stories to tell. They need to have stories about their own lives. And there's no denying that Imran Khan has an enormously interesting, attractive narrative arc to his life. Right? On my Twitter, there was one of my Pakistani followers was pointing out that there are only two people who have reached the pinnacle of three different professions. And the other example he gave was Arnold Schwarzenegger of, bodybuilding, movies, and politics. Sure. And he said in Imran Khan's case, maybe not quite on the global scale as Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's reached the pinnacle in cricket, in philanthropy, and in politics. So I mean, my point over there has always been that I find it very irritating, both in India and Pakistan, when people base their judgment or their assessment of a politician's popularity based on whether they like the person or not, or want them to be in power or not. And we see that a lot in our part of the world, unfortunately, where if someone doesn't like Imran Khan, They'll pretend he's not really popular. They'll say that, well, oh, no, only there used to be this abiding theme. Remember, I was in Dubai a couple of years ago, and I talked to lots of Pakistanis, and every single person told me how much they liked Imran Khan. And I put that out on Twitter, and I had all of these Pakistani liberal friends of mine telling me, no, 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 you don't get it. That's just because they're in Dubai. Or no, 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 you don't get it. Only the burgers like him. And there was this whole sort of unwillingness to believe that he is a charismatic leader who has a mass following. And I don't think, if you're a critic of Imran Khan, as I am, I don't think you strengthen your argument by denying reality. So I've never denied that reality, and obviously I don't deny that reality even now.
Right. But at the one, I don't want to jump the queue on my questions, but you like his story, clearly, but you're also skeptical about his comeback. You don't think he's going to do much if he does make a return somehow. But before we go there, before we jump the queue, let's stick to the initial question.
No good
Why
option.
are there no good options, Sadanand Dhume, for
Okay, so
Pakistan?
let's
Why
okay,
is
so
the Wall
let's
Street Journal saying things aren't looking good, whoever wins?
Well, I mean, it's not the Wall Street Journal saying it, it's me saying it in my Wall Street Journal column. This is not the editorial board saying it. I mean, we have to make a distinction there.
Sure.
Uh, so my view is that, like, what could happen, right? One of two things. One is that you have some kind of PDM government led by Shahbaz Sharif, supported by PPP, perhaps from the outside. Basically, you get a rerun of PDM. Now, this is obviously not a good option for the simple reason that this government will lack all legitimacy. Everybody knows what happened. Everybody knows that Imran Khan was the winner. Everybody knows that Nawaz Sharif, for instance, struggled to save his own seat. I mean, I was watching as you were, and as millions of people were, was watching the counting as on the sort of on that Thursday night. It was pretty clear that Nawaz Sharif was heading for a drubbing by Yasmin Rashid, right? And then you suddenly wake up, and then, oh, guess what? He won. And there were so many of these things, right? So, but I don't think in the age of social media, I don't think you can hide these things. So even if PDM does form a government, it would be a weak government without legitimacy and without the ability to take the hard decisions that Pakistan needs taken. So
Yep.
that, I think, we would agree upon. I think more controversially, especially for your viewers, would be my view that the other option is not so great either from
Hmm.
Pakistan's perspective. And I think this comes down to, you know, under what circumstances do you think Imran Khan could return and become prime minister? Now, my underlying assumption over there is that the enmity with Asim Munir,
Hmm.
the vendetta there, Asim Munir, Nadeem
So you think
Anjar.
there's a vendetta, huh? You think it's a personal issue?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them, but I think it has certainly the characteristics of a personal issue, particularly since his marriage has been dragged into this, particularly since his wife has been dragged into this. There have been assassination attempts. Um, it certainly seems like, let me put it this way, if there was no Asim Munir, Imran Khan would be prime minister, right? What is blocking his way? What's blocking his way is obviously the institution of the army chief, but also the person of this particular army chief.
Hmm.
So
Well assessed.
for him to come back to power, you would need the army chief to basically bend the knee,
Hmm.
right? Or decide to leave. There has to be some kind of capitulation here, right? This is the sort of, you have the unstoppable force that is Imran Khan up against the immovable object historically, which is the chief of army staff of Pakistan.
Yep.
Now, let's say, hypothetically, Asim Munir bends the knee. He leaves. Nadeem Anjum leaves. The remaining generals come to some kind of consensus, and they agree that Imran Khan is the voice of the Pakistani people. We will be subordinate to him. I think Khan supporters are underestimating the amount of rupture that would involve for Pakistan, right? Because whatever else you may say, and I'm not coming into this as some great fan of the Pakistani army, don't get me wrong, but whatever else you might say, it is a functional institution. It's been a functional institution for more than 75 years. And it is actually not. It's a better run institution in some ways than many armies in more developed countries, right?
Right.
Pakistan famously has never had a colonel's coup.
Hmm.
The coup, right, is led from by the guy on top. Everybody else, chain of command has been very strong. What does it mean to put that under strain? I
Hmm.
think it creates an enormous amount of strain, and it opens the door to chaos. And I don't think we can discount that.
So you're saying no bending the knee then. So no credibility for the PTM or whatever version of PTM comes in. That's no good options. And then no bending the knee. That would be chaotic or worse.
I'm saying
So
if you bend the knee, you end up opening the door to other kinds of disruption. I'm not making a value judgment of which is worse or which is better. I'm just saying they're both pretty bad.
right, which takes us to the third bit, which is Imran himself. Now, let's just assume that somehow Imran does return, but you are not convinced that he would be a very good option either. In fact, you contend that, and I quote, things wouldn't look much sunnier if Mr. Khan clawed his way back to power. His brand of Islamic populism, railing against America and promising to turn Pakistan into a welfare state modeled on Medina in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, may well play with voters, but it offers no long term solutions to the country's deep economic problems. Expand on this and please advise on how you're just keeping Imran. You're almost like your guardrails are his Medina ki Riyasat rants and his anti American, the Taliban have broken the shackles of slavery rant. That's a very limited point of views, Sadanand, considering just a minute ago you were quite enamored by the man's narrative arc, as you called it. So why
But I'm
just
not
keep him? Why
enamored
keep
by
him?
it.
Why keep him
I
limited to?
acknowledge it.
Right,
That's
but why
different.
keep him limited to just these two guardrails? There's
No,
so
but
much
I don't
more.
think these are just, I don't think I've just, picked up two random statements and
Hmm.
sort of made something real. Both of those, I think, are actually, pretty good examples of his worldview. So
Hmm.
here's how I look at Imran Khan. I think of Imran Khan as basically updated, better looking version of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Okay. That is what, I mean, Imranism is basically Bhuttoism. You have the vaguely left of center economics. You have this idea that capitalists and the elites are bloodsuckers, right? In Zulfi Bhutto's words, for Imran Khan, it's the liberal scum. They've got a sort of they themselves come from elite backgrounds, particularly in the case of Bhutto, but their politics is kind of pitched against their own elites to a certain extent.
Hmm.
It's sort of left of center economics, right?
Right.
Then you have the element of pan-Islamism. So in the case of Zulfi Bhutto, you have the Islamic Summit in Pakistan. Everyone's seen that famous photograph.
Yep. Yep.
Yasser Arafat, Muammar Gaddafi, everybody's there. In the case of Imran Khan, you have his famous speech to the UN. You've got his sort of, criticizing Macron. You have his sort of, criticism of what's type of the Netherlands and cartoons and all of that. That's also just part of his brand. Um, so, but I think in some ways, to me, that's a tragedy, right? I mean, wouldn't it be great if Pakistan and the Pakistani political imagination was large enough to imagine, say, to have space for, say, something like Pakistani Javier Milei,
Hmm.
someone who is actually kind of like fresh, has a different template. This is not, he doesn't, Imran Khan has an amazingly powerful personal story. No one can take away from that.
Right.
I don't think his politics is fresh. His politics, in terms of its ideas, is basically reheated Bhuttoism. And I think Bhuttoism was an awful idea. That's just my point of view.
Right, right. But premised on that, let's dissect your awful idea a little more, or his awful idea, which you think is an awful idea, rather.
Exactly.
Um, so, if I were to, if I were your editor, I would say, hey man, how about like, isn't I like this paragraph? It works for your column, but don't you think you should maybe add something about how He's the first man in a long time to have inspired a whole new generation to vote like this, to get on social media, to get on the streets against this long standing nemesis of democracy, aka the Pakistani military establishment. And yes, of course, he was a babe of the army, like anybody with a knee-jerk reaction would contend. But so was Bhutto, by the way, and so was
And so was Nawaz Sharif.
right, and so has everybody who's preceded him recently. So everybody's been green lit by the generals in GHQ. So that doesn't make Khan stand out as an outlier, but hasn't he done what no man has done before him, which is to actually lead perhaps a modern and perhaps even a semi-successful, if not an exciting, anti-establishment movement? As and we're seeing it still, brave all odds, in slow motion every day on the streets of Pakistan, on Pakistani Twitter and elsewhere. Don't you think that the man deserves a little more credit than just being a Medina ka Riyasati and railing against the Americans?
Look, he deserves an enormous amount of credit as a political communicator. And this is, I think he's an extremely interesting political communicator because there are many populists who are powerful orators. In my view, Imran Khan was actually not born with the gift of the gab.
Mm.
He has
Agreed.
many other talents. He has many, he has many other qualities. I think the most obvious one, of course, is grit and determination, right? To just plug away at something, enormous reserves of self-confidence, enormous reserves of self-belief. You need all those things in politics. But he's not a natural communicator, right? Modi across the border is a gifted communicator, right? Modi is his native language is Gujarati, but you put it go just you watch his Hindi speeches, they're as good as any native born Hindi speaker, right? He can go to Maharashtra and start speaking in Marathi for 10 minutes. It's just again, we're not talking about whether you like the politician or not, good or bad. We're judging them as professionals, right?
Fair.
Um, so I give Imran Khan a lot of credit for, and in fact, overcoming that and building a really powerful political movement because he's a gifted communicator despite not being a gifted orator. And the gift that he has as a communicator is that he manages to simplify and then bang home a message
Hmm.
over and over and over. And unlike other Pakistani politicians, he's fearless. He's crazy. He's a fast bowler, right? So, I mean, other politicians will they'll stop. They'll like, okay, I bowled one bouncer. Now I'm gonna. This guy will just bowl six bouncers and say, I'm just gonna keep going. So I think that shows that. I mean, so he's enormously gifted as a political communicator, and there is no doubt that he has deepened Pakistani democracy to the extent that he has mobilized and inspired large numbers of people, particularly young people. He gets credit for that. And on the sort of narrow point of taking on the establishment, I think that's a little bit trickier. Yes, he has taken on the establishment more powerfully than anyone since Bhutto, the original Bhutto. Um, but at the same time, does he really stand for a worldview that is that dramatically different from the army's? I'm not so sure.
That's a good thought to ponder on. But I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that either. I think fundamentally Khan's been on the same page through the 90s when he started in this business. He's been on fundamentally the same page naturally with the military. He's hawkish on India. He's hawkish on Kashmir. He's hawkish about those nukes. He was pretty. I wouldn't say pro Taliban, but he was pretty like, hey, let's stop
He
fighting.
was
Let's talk
sympathetic.
to the Taliban, which
But
is exactly what the military has been saying. I don't think he's been fundamentally at um, uh, in opposition with the military on anything at all, and that's why one wonders for at your final assessment then that
that's not my yardstick, right? I'm not. I mean, I agree. I'm saying he's not been. But the issue I have is that if you assume that the biggest, and these are all ifs, and many Pakistanis can, in good conscience, disagree with me, and perhaps you'll disagree with me. Um, in my view, the immediate goal for anyone running Pakistan ought to be for your average Pakistani to be in a position to fulfill their potential.
hmm,
And that really means doing something about this severe economic underperformance, right? I mean, you don't have to get to Denmark, you don't have to get to Singapore, you don't have to get to Switzerland. But at least as a goal, maybe Pakistan should try to get to Thailand's per capita income level,
Hmm.
right? It's one fifth of Thailand's per capita income level, right? 20 years ago, the Pakistani economy was about 18% the size of India's. Now it's only 9% the size of India's. The Pakistani Indian stock market is 137 times larger than Pakistan's.
Yeah.
Not 8 times larger for an 8 times larger economy. The guys who've been running things, it's as though there's this entire field that they are not interested in or not engaged with in a serious way. And I'd say that's true of the military, and that's true of the political class. And that was certainly true of Imran Khan during his 4 years. So my point is, for this country to kind of be the best that it can be, it needs to have someone who is focused on that part of the puzzle. And I know that the way the debate ends up is that you have one group of people who say, well, this has happened because the military is oversized,
Yeah.
and you have
It's
another group of people who say, well, the civilians are all incompetent and corrupt. And
yeah. It
I'm
becomes
saying, well, both of those things can be true.
it becomes a chicken and an egg situation.
And
And
so,
your point about the economy is taken. There's not enough business papers in that country. There's not enough business channels in that country.
and
There's
look at
not
the
enough.
quality, right? The quality of analysis in Pakistan on geopolitics and on military affairs is first rate, and it's always been first rate. But once it comes to sort of questions of economics, and there are some good economic commentary, but it's a very thin bench.
Right. I'm with you. Political economy is pretty good too, but when it comes to just hardcore economics,
Exactly.
yeah, things falter. Last question, and I'll let you go. And this is important because this is your ender. You contend, Sadanand, that it seems unlikely that Islamabad will get its act together soon. I'm assuming you also mean Rawalpindi, the real capital of Pakistan,
Correct.
the
I'm,
seat,
I'm not
the seat of the military.
I'm not sure my average Wall Street Journal reader would understand the Rawalpindi
Yeah, I know. I know.
reference the way your
I'm with
viewers
you.
might.
I'm with you, but I'm assuming that's what you meant as well. So please
Absolutely.
expand. Last 60 seconds to expand on why you think the generals, the civilians, the political and military elite at large will not get the house in order.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by history over here, right? I mean, we have this sort of struggle that's been going on for a long, long time. We've had numerous civilian leaders come and go. We've had numerous military leaders come and go. Some of them have been more successful than others. But so far, Pakistan has not produced its Deng Xiaoping. Pakistan has not produced its Lee Kuan Yew. Pakistan has not produced even Javier Milei, even though it's very early on in his thinking. And I think in some ways that's the tragedy of Imran Khan, who I do admire in many ways. The tragedy is that this person who has such enormous reserves of willpower and grit, has so much charisma, has such an incredible story, has got very good political communication skills, has kind of squandered it all in being a kind of reheated Bhutto.
Hmm.
Imagine if he had been, along with all these skills, he'd also had a set of policies that were fresh and forward looking and rooted in some kind of embrace of market economics. Then I'd probably be an Imran Khan fan.
Right. Which makes me wonder towards the end whether he would be a reformed leader, perhaps with a better bench of ministers, especially after considering his party's been purged now, and maybe he'd get some fresh blood. Maybe
He
he'd
needs to
get
bring in Atif Mia, and the people who object to his being an Ahmadi, he needs to tell them where to get off.
yeah, and maybe we would have seen, or maybe we will see this new Imran Sadanand. But yeah, that's a lot of there's lots of ifs and buts over there before that happens. But thank you. I was quite enthused by your piece. I'm glad that in this world where we have previously assessed where there's very little interest about Pakistan, I'm glad you're keeping the story going. Thank you for writing your piece. I appreciate it. As much as a lot of our viewers will probably contend it, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Thank you for being
I
on the
like
show.
your viewers. I read all the comments, by the way, on YouTube.
Well, thank you. By the way, Sadanand Dhume tweets at Dhume. He covers South Asia at large for the Journal in his column, and of course, he is a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. He's also a mate, and he has a lovely dog. And I'm planning on seeing both of them very, very soon. Cheers, Sadanand. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in the spring this year, man. Hopefully soon.
Sounds good. Take care,
Cheers.
Wajahat.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.